The blizzard didn't howl, it wailed like a creature mourning its own death. Fenrisa wrapped skeletal arms around herself in the freezing darkness, each breath a white ghost dissolving into nothing. She should have been sleeping in heated chambers beside an Alpha King, but rejected Lunas don't get those mercies. Not when the wolf, who once called you mate, declares you broken before an entire kingdom. Then came the whimpering at her door. 5 tiny wolves, so young their fur still held the softness of newborns, collapsed in the snow, dying, abandoned, begging a discarded Luna to be their salvation. Fenrisa didn't know that opening that door would awaken a prophecy the territories had declared extinct, or that the cruelest betrayals aren't delivered by strangers, they're sealed with vows by those who promised you forever. The cold had teeth. Fenrisa had learned this over 2 years of exile, the way it bit through threadbare blankets, gnawed at her bones, whispered promises that sleep would finally bring peace. Her cabin, if the rotting structure deserved that name, groaned under the blizzard's assault, wind shrieking through gaps in the timber like souls trapped between worlds. She pulled her knees to her chest, the motion automatic now, conservation of warmth, conservation of life, though she couldn't remember why that mattered anymore. The fire had died an hour ago. She'd used the last of her wood yesterday. Tomorrow there would be no tomorrow. This is how it ends, she thought, and felt nothing. Not fear, not relief. Just the hollow ache where hope used to live, back when she'd believed in Alpha King's promises. Back when Finnegan McGrath had traced the Luna mark on her throat and sworn she was his destiny. "You are not enough," he'd said at the rejection ceremony, his voice echoing through the great hall while hundreds watched. "You never were." Seraphine had stood beside him, the new Luna, her smile sharp as winter. The pack had howled their approval, and Fenrisa had walked into the wilderness alone, carrying nothing but the shreds of a bond that had been severed like a limb. "Let the cold take me," she thought now, closing her eyes. "Let it be finished." Then came the sound. Scratching, weak and desperate. Not wind, not branches scraping timber. Claws. Fenrisa's eyes snapped open. Her wolf, dormant for so long, suddenly stirred with an instinct she thought had frozen to death. Pups. The scratching came again, accompanied by a sound that split her chest open, tiny, broken whimpering. The sound of something dying. She shouldn't move. She had no warmth to share, no food to offer, no strength left to save anything, not even herself. But her body was already moving, muscle memory overriding logic. The Luna in her, the protector, the nurturer. All the parts Finnegan had declared worthless dragged her to the door. Her hands shook as she lifted the wooden bar. Ice cracked. The door swung open, and the blizzard roared inside like a living thing. There, on her threshold, 5 tiny shapes lay in the snow. Wolf pups. So young, their eyes barely glowed amber in the darkness. Frost covered their fur in crystalline shrouds. They weren't moving. "No," Fenrisa breathed. The first word she'd spoken aloud in days. "No, no, no." She dropped to her knees in the snow, her hands, so thin now, so weak, reaching for the nearest pup. Its body was rigid with cold, lips pulled back from milk teeth, tiny chest barely moving. "They came here to die," she realized with horror. They dragged themselves through a blizzard to die at my door. Something in her chest, something she thought Finnegan had killed, suddenly blazed to life. "Not here," she whispered, gathering the first pup against her chest. "Not you. Not tonight." She didn't know where the strength came from. Her body was failing, her wolf was broken, her magic had been declared non-existent. But she dragged the first pup inside, then the second, the third, fourth, fifth. 5 tiny bodies, frozen and dying, now lying on her cabin floor. Fenrissa knelt among them, shaking, her breath coming in sobs. She had nothing. No fire, no food, no warmth, nothing to save them with. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the pups, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I can't. I don't have—" The smallest pup, barely the size of her forearm, lifted its head. Its eyes, pale as winter ice, met hers. And in that gaze, she saw something impossible. Trust. Choice. Please. "I can't save you," Fenrissa said, her voice breaking. "I'm nothing. I'm broken. The pup's tiny paw reached out, rested on her hand, and the world exploded in silver light. "Before we continue, I need to know, would you have opened that door? Knowing you had nothing left to give, would you save 5 dying pups, or let the cold finally take you both? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Also, subscribe right now because this story gets absolutely insane, and you do not want to miss what happens when ancient magic awakens. Seriously, hit that subscribe button now. Trust me on this. 2 years, 730 days of slow starvation, 17,000 hours of remembering what it felt like to be wanted. Fenrissa had stopped counting weeks ago, but the numbers haunted her anyway, carved into her bones like the cold that never left. The cabin Finnegan had generously provided sat 3 miles from the nearest pack boundary, far enough that no one would hear her scream, close enough that they'd find her body when spring came. If spring came. If anyone bothered to look. She pressed her back against the wall, watching the last ember in her fireplace fade from orange to gray. No more wood. She'd burned the chair yesterday, the table the week before. Tomorrow she could start on the floorboards, but her hands shook too badly to grip the axe anymore. The Luna mark on her throat had faded to a scar, a ghost of the bond that had been severed in front of 300 wolves. She could still see Finnegan standing on the dais, his face carved from stone, his voice carrying across the ceremonial hall with the weight of law. Fenrissa of the Silver Moon has failed in her sacred duty as Luna. 3 years without producing an heir. 3 years of weakness reflected onto this pack. She'd stood there, silent, as he'd continued. The treaty with the Northern Territories required a strong bloodline. The pack needed reassurance. She'd had her chance. "You are not enough," Finnegan had said, his green eyes meeting hers without flinching. "You never were." Seraphine had stepped forward then, radiant in white ceremonial robes, her hand sliding into Finnegan's like it had always belonged there. Perhaps it had. Perhaps Fenrissa had only been keeping it warm. The rejection had felt like claws tearing through her chest, shredding the mate bond fiber by fiber. She'd collapsed, screaming, while the pack had watched in silence. No one had helped her stand. No one had followed when she'd stumbled from the hall. Finnegan had sent guards the next morning with supplies for 1 month and directions to the cabin. She'd made those supplies last 4. Now, 2 winters later, she had nothing left. No food, no fire, no reason to open her eyes tomorrow. The cold pressed closer, a lover more faithful than any alpha. Her breathing had slowed, each exhale taking longer to return. This was fine. This was mercy. This was the end Finnegan had designed for her, slow enough to call natural, fast enough to be forgotten. Then came the scratching. Weak. Desperate. Accompanied by sounds that shouldn't exist in a blizzard this brutal. The high, broken whimpering of something small and dying. Fenrissa's eyes opened. Her wolf, silent for months, suddenly stirred. Pups. She should stay down. She had nothing to offer them, nothing to offer anyone. But the scratching came again, and with it, a sound that shattered something in her chest. 5 distinct voices, crying in harmony. Her body moved before her mind could stop it, crawling toward the door. The door fought her, ice sealing it shut like a tomb. Fenrissa threw her shoulder against the wood, gasping as frozen air knifed into her lungs. It gave with a crack that echoed through the blizzard. 5 shapes lay in the snow. So small. Gods, they were so small. Wolf pups, barely 8 weeks old if she had to guess, their fur crusted with ice crystals that glittered like broken glass. They weren't moving. She dropped to her knees, her hands, skeletal, shaking, reaching for the nearest one. Its body was rigid with cold, tiny ribs visible through matted fur. One by one, she dragged them inside. Each pup felt impossibly heavy, her muscles screaming in protest. The smallest one left a trail of blood in the snow from cracked paw pads. By the time she pulled the 5th across the threshold, her vision had tunneled to a pinpoint of gray. She collapsed beside them, her breath coming in ragged sobs. They lay in a circle on the frozen floor, 5 tiny bodies that had crawled through a killing storm to die at her door. Why here? Why her? The smallest pup whimpered, a sound so broken it tore through her chest. She gathered it against her, trying to share what little warmth remained in her body. Its heartbeat fluttered against her palm like a dying bird. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I can't save you. I don't have anything left. I can't even save myself." The pup's eyes opened, pale winter blue, barely focusing. Its tiny paw lifted, touched her hand. And in that moment, something passed between them. Not words. Deeper than words. Trust. Pure and absolute. Choosing her with its last breath. "No," Fenrissa sobbed. "Please, I'm nothing. I'm broken, Heat erupted in her chest. Not the gentle warmth of a fire, but something primal and ancient, rushing through her veins like liquid starlight. Her back arched as silver light exploded from her skin, flooding the cabin with radiance bright enough to blind. The pup's eyes snapped open, all 5 at once, glowing with the same silver light. Fenrissa gasped as 5 consciousnesses crashed into her mind, tiny, frightened, desperate. They reached for her with an instinct older than language, and her wolf, dormant for so long, rose up with a roar that shook her bones. "Mine. My pups. Mine." Her body changed. Not shifting, but something else entirely. Warmth poured from her skin. Her scent shifting to something rich and safe. Her breasts ached, suddenly heavy, and she understood with shock what was happening. Mother wolf magic. The bond thought extinct for 2 centuries. The pups moved as one, crawling toward her with renewed strength, their small bodies drawn by instinct. They burrowed against her, whimpering, and when they found what they sought, Fenrissa's breath caught in her throat. She was feeding them, her body producing what they needed, responding to their need with magic she'd never known she possessed. The silver light pulsed with each small movement, threads of power connecting her heart to 5 smaller ones. She could feel them now, their fear dissolving into relief, their cold retreating, their tiny hearts beating stronger with every moment. They were so young, so fragile, so absolutely, completely hers. Fenrissa wrapped her arms around them, tears streaming freely now, and for the first time in 2 years, she felt warm. The cabin's walls seemed to glow with silver light, the blizzard's shriek fading to something distant and harmless. 5 tiny wolves nursed and slept against her, their bodies relaxing into trust. And as exhaustion finally claimed her, Fenrissa's last thought wasn't of dying. It was of protecting them, whatever the cost. Fenrissa woke to warmth. For a moment she thought she'd died. Heaven couldn't be this soft, this safe. Then she felt the weight on her chest, her arms, her legs, 5 small bodies breathing in perfect synchronization. She opened her eyes. Sunlight streamed through the cabin's cracks, painting everything gold. The fire that had died yesterday now blazed cheerfully in the hearth, though she didn't remember lighting it. The cold that had lived in her bones for 2 years was gone. And the pups. They weren't pups anymore. 5 toddlers slept curled around her, their skin ranging from pale as snow to rich as dark honey. Children, maybe 2 or 3 years old in appearance, though something ancient gleamed in their features. One had hair like smoke, another like fire. The smallest pressed against her side, silver white curls tangled across Fenrissa's arm. "Mama," the child whispered, eyes still closed. "Mama warm." Fenrissa's breath caught. The words settled into her chest like a key turning in a lock. Through the bond, she could feel it now. 5 silver threads connecting her heart to theirs, names bloomed in her mind like flowers in spring. Ash, Ember, Frost, Storm, Shadow. "Yes," she whispered back, her hand instinctively stroking Frost's hair. "Mama's here." The knock at the door made her wolf surge protectively. She gathered the children closer, a growl building in her throat. No one came to this cabin. No one except... "Peace, Mother Wolf," a woman's voice called. "We mean no harm to you or the Frostborn heirs." Frostborn. The word sent ice down her spine. Fenrissa wrapped a blanket around the children and moved to the door. 2 elderly wolves stood in the snow, a woman with silver hair braided to her waist, and a man whose scarred face spoke of centuries of survival. "My name is Dagmar," the woman said, her eyes moving past Fenrissa to the children. When she saw them, tears spilled down her weathered cheeks. "By the old gods, the mother wolf lives. The prophecy wasn't a lie." "What are you talking about?" Fenrissa demanded, blocking the doorway. "May we enter?" the man asked gently. "What we have to say, you'll want to sit for." Against her better judgment, Fenrissa let them in. Dagmar knelt before the children, her hands trembling as she traced the air above their heads, not quite touching. "Pure Frostborn," she breathed. "All 5. The last of the royal bloodline." "Royal?" Fenrissa shook her head. "They're just pups, abandoned pups who—" "Were led to you by instinct older than memory," Torsten interrupted, his eyes, gray as winter storms, fixed on her. 3 months ago, the Frostborn pack was slaughtered by rivals seeking their territory. Only these 5 survived, hidden by their dying mother. She sent them north with her last breath, told them to find the mother wolf. "That's impossible," Fenrissa whispered. "Mother wolf bonds are extinct. Everyone knows. Everyone is wrong." Dagmar stood, her gaze fierce. "The bond never died. It waited. For you." Frost climbed into Fenrissa's lap, small arms wrapping around her neck. "Mama," the child said again, the word both question and declaration. "These children are worth kingdoms," Torsten continued, his voice low and urgent. "Their bloodline carries magic thought lost forever. When word spreads that they've bonded to you, and word will spread, wolves from every territory will come." "Let them come," Fenrissa said, her arms tightening around Frost. The other 4 had woken now, climbing onto her like she was a mountain to be conquered. They will kill you to possess them," Dagmar said bluntly. "Or kill them to control you. The mother-wolf bond makes you irreplaceable, child. You can amplify their power, guide their growth, make them unstoppable. Do you understand? You've become the most valuable wolf in the northern territories." Fenrissa looked down at 5 pairs of eyes, silver, gold, blue, green, amber, all watching her with absolute trust. "I don't care," she said quietly. "They're mine now. I don't care who wants them." Dagmar's smile was fierce and approving. "Good. Then we begin training immediately, because when your former mate discovers what you've become, he'll move heaven and earth to reclaim you." Ash. The eldest pressed tiny hands to Fenrissa's cheeks. "Safe," the child said. "Mama keeps safe." "Yes," Fenrissa whispered, something steel strong forming in her chest. "Mama keeps you safe. Always." The training began at dawn. Dagmar had Fenrissa sit cross-legged on the cabin floor, the 5 children arranged in a circle around her. Torsten stood guard at the window, his eyes scanning the tree line with the vigilance of a wolf who'd survived too many ambushes. "Close your eyes," Dagmar instructed. "Feel the threads." Fenrissa obeyed. Immediately, she sensed them, 5 silver cords stretching from her heart to each child, pulsing with warmth and light. They weren't metaphorical. They were real, visible in her mind's eye, humming with potential. "The mother-wolf bond isn't just nurturing," Dagmar said softly. "It's amplification. Every strength you channel to them returns tenfold. Every protection you offer becomes their shield. You don't just raise them, you forge them." "How?" Fenrissa whispered. "Intent, focus, love." Dagmar's hand rested on her shoulder. "Think of making them stronger, not someday, now." Fenrissa focused on the threads, imagining warmth flowing through them. But not just warmth, strength, vitality, power. The silver light blazed brighter, and the children gasped as one. When she opened her eyes, they were glowing. Not their eyes, their entire bodies lit from within like lanterns. Ash laughed, a sound of pure delight, and suddenly leaped 6 feet straight up, landing with perfect balance on the cabin's support beam. "Mama made us strong!" Ember crowed, racing across the floor faster than any toddler should move. Fenrissa stared at her hands, silver light still dancing across her fingertips. "I did that?" "You did that," Dagmar confirmed, her smile proud. "And that's just the beginning." For 3 days they trained. Fenrissa learned to channel through the bond deliberately, not just strength, but focus, courage, calm. The children responded like flowers to sunlight, growing visibly healthier, their movements more coordinated, their eyes brightening with intelligence beyond their apparent years. Storm could climb trees that would challenge adult wolves. Shadow moved so silently, even Torsten couldn't track him. Frost's small hands could crack river ice with a touch. They were magnificent. On the 4th day, Torsten stiffened at the window. "Company!" Fenrissa's wolf surged instantly to alertness. She moved to the door, positioning herself between the children and whatever approached. Through the trees, she spotted them. 3 wolves in human form, wearing the gray leathers of the Iron Peak pack. Scouts, watching her cabin. One pointed, speaking to the others. His words carried on the wind. 5 frost-born cubs with a rejected Luna. Aldrich will pay fortune for... Fenrissa didn't remember shifting, didn't remember moving. But suddenly she was standing in the snow between her cabin and the scouts, and the rage pouring through her made the air itself shimmer with silver light. "Leave." Her voice came out deeper than natural, resonating with power that made the trees shake. "Now." The lead scout laughed. "Or what? You're nothing but a discarded..." The barrier erupted from the ground like a wall of living lightning. Silver flames roared skyward, forming a dome over her cabin, over her children. The scouts stumbled backward, their eyes wide with shock. "Touch them," Fenrissa said, her wolf fully merged with her consciousness now, primal and absolute. "And I will rip your throat out. I will paint this snow red with your blood. I will make you beg for the mercy of death before I'm done." She meant every word. Could feel the truth of it singing in her bones. The mother-wolf bond didn't just make her powerful, it made her terrifying. Maternal fury, Dagmar had said, was the most powerful magic in wolf history. Armies had broken against it. Alphas had fallen before it. Now Fenrisa understood why. The scouts fled, crashing through underbrush in their panic. One looked back, his face pale. "She's not broken anymore," he gasped to his companions. "We need to warn—" His voice faded into distance. Fenrisa stood in the snow, silver light still crackling around her, her breath coming hard. Behind her, 5 small voices spoke in perfect unison. "Our mama." She turned. The children stood in the doorway, glowing with reflected power, their faces fierce and proud. "Yes," Fenrisa said, her voice steady now, certain. "Your mama, and nobody takes what's mine." "Okay, stop. Real talk. Do you think Fenrisa can actually protect these pups from an alpha king who wants to steal them? Because things are about to get brutal. Drop your predictions in the comments right now. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Subscribe, because the next part will blow your mind. I'm serious. Hit that button now, or you'll regret missing what happens next. They came on the 7th day, a procession of power that sent birds fleeing from the trees. Fenrisa sensed them before they arrived, a disturbance in the air that made her wolf bristle with recognition. She gathered the children inside, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Stay behind me," she told them, "no matter what happens." 12 wolves emerged from the forest in human form, all wearing the crimson and gold of the royal pack. And at their center, moving with the predatory grace she'd once thought beautiful, was Finnegan McGrath. He looked exactly as she remembered. Sharp cheekbones, green eyes like summer forests, dark hair pulled back in the style of kings. Beside him walked Seraphine, resplendent in furs that probably cost more than Fenrisa's cabin, her hand possessively on Finnegan's arm. Fenrisa stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind her. The silver barrier shimmered to life automatically, a translucent wall between them and her threshold. Finnegan stopped, his eyebrows rising. "Fenrisa," he said her name like he was tasting something unexpected. "You're alive." "Disappointed?" she asked flatly. "Surprised." His gaze swept over her, and she saw the moment he registered the changes. She'd gained weight, her hollow cheeks filled out. Her hair, which had been dull and lifeless, now gleamed silver blonde in the sunlight. Her eyes, once dim with starvation, burned with purpose. "I've heard rumors," Finnegan continued, his tone carefully neutral, "that you've taken in orphaned frostborn cubs. As Alpha King, I have authority over all orphaned wolves in the Northern Territories. I'm here to collect them." "No." The word dropped between them like a stone. Seraphine laughed, sharp and cruel. "You can't refuse a direct order from—" "I can and I am." Fenrisa's voice remained steady. "These children are under my protection. You have no claim on them." "They're orphans," Finnegan said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "They need proper pack structure, resources, training. What can you possibly offer them here?" He gestured dismissively at the cabin. Behind her, the door cracked open. 5 small faces peered out, and Fenrisa's heart clenched. She'd told them to stay hidden, but children rarely obeyed when they sensed their mother threatened. Finnegan's eyes locked on them. His entire body went rigid. "Frostborn," he breathed. "By the old gods, pure Frostborn. All 5. His expression transformed in an instant, from dismissive to calculating, his mind clearly racing through implications. 5 pure Frostborn heirs, bonded to a Luna, the political power, the territorial alliances, the sheer magical potential. When he looked at Fenrisa again, his face had arranged itself into something resembling warmth. "Fenrisa." His voice softened, became almost gentle. "Perhaps I was hasty in my judgment of you. You've clearly proven yourself capable, more than capable." He took a step forward. "Come home. Bring the children. They deserve the resources of the royal pack. And you, he paused, as if the words pained him. You deserve better than this exile. You've proven yourself after all. The sheer audacity of it stole her breath. 2 years. 2 years of slow starvation, and he wanted to act like nothing had happened because she'd become useful again. I proved nothing to you, Fenrissa said quietly. I have different pups now, and they already have a home. This? Seraphine gestured at the cabin, her voice dripping venom. This hovel? You'd condemn royal heirs to— They're happy here, Fenrissa interrupted. Safe here, loved here. 3 things they wouldn't be in your court. Behind her, she heard soft growling. The children had emerged fully now, standing in a line with their small faces fierce. Storm bared tiny teeth at Finnegan. Shadow's eyes had gone completely silver. Even gentle Frost looked ready to fight. Finnegan saw it too. Saw how they positioned themselves protectively around Fenrissa's legs. Saw the silver threads that anyone with magical sight could now perceive, connecting her heart to theirs. Mother Wolf bond, he whispered, and something like fear flickered across his face before he mastered it. You've awakened Mother Wolf magic. She's stronger than when you cast her out, Seraphine said. And for the first time, Fenrissa heard uncertainty beneath the jealousy. Finnegan's jaw tightened. When he spoke again, the false warmth had vanished, replaced by the cold authority she remembered from the rejection ceremony. Those cubs are assets to the territories, Fenrissa. Their bloodline, their power. They belong to all wolves, not to a single rejected Luna playing house in the wilderness. He stepped back, his hand moving to rest on Seraphine's shoulder in a gesture of ownership. I'll see you at the Council of Territories. They'll decide where the Frostborn heirs belong. Good, Fenrissa said, lifting her chin. Let them decide. Let them see what you tried to destroy. Finnegan's eyes narrowed. For a moment, she saw the fury he usually hid behind political courtesy. Then he turned, his entourage falling into formation around him. As they disappeared into the trees, Ash tugged on Fenrissa's hand. Mama scared? The child asked softly. Fenrissa knelt, gathering all 5 into her arms. No, little one. Not scared. Ready. But her hands shook as she held them close, and in the distance, she could still feel Finnegan's gaze like ice against her spine. They had 3 weeks to prepare. Dagmar laid out the full prophecy on the cabin's worn table, her finger tracing ancient text in a leather-bound book older than memory. When winter's children find the mother lost, 5 who rule shall rise from frost. Not through conquest, not through fear, but through the bond that makes power clear. 5 who rule, Fenrissa repeated, looking at the children who were currently arguing over who got to pack her spare blanket. They're just babies. They won't be forever, Torsten said quietly. And when they grow, with you guiding them, they'll reshape the territories. That's what Finnegan fears. Not their power, but yours. The journey to the council grounds took 5 days. The children shifted to wolf form for travel, tiny bodies bounding through snow with the tireless energy of youth. Fenrissa marveled at how natural it seemed for them now. The shifting, the running, the perfect synchronization of their movements. When one turned, all 5 turned. When one stopped to drink, the others waited. On the 2nd day, they encountered other travelers heading to council. A young woman stood alone at a river crossing, her eyes hollow with the particular emptiness Fenrissa recognized immediately. Luna? Fenrissa called softly. The woman's head snapped up, wariness etched into every line of her body. Then she saw the children, saw the silver threads humming with visible magic, and her eyes filled with tears. You're her, she whispered. The Mother Wolf. I heard the rumors, but I thought, She pressed a hand to her mouth. I'm Kestra. My mate said I was too weak to be Luna. Barren, useless. He took another and sent me away. Fenrissa's chest tightened. You're not weak. I know that now. Kestra's gaze fixed on the children, who'd arranged themselves protectively around Fenrissa's legs. Because you exist. What you've done gives us all hope. Every rejected Luna, every wolf told she wasn't enough. You're showing them the lie. She joined their group, and by the time they reached the council grounds, 3 more had appeared. Marginalized Lunas, cast aside by mates who'd deemed them insufficient. They didn't ask to travel with Fenrissa. They simply fell into step beside her, drawing strength from proximity to proof that their supposed weakness was someone else's blindness. The council grounds stole Fenrissa's breath. A massive stone amphitheater carved into a mountainside, surrounded by temporary camps housing hundreds of wolves from dozens of territories. Banners in every color snapped in the wind. The air crackled with power and politics. Everything changes here, Dagmar said quietly. Win, and you rewrite the laws. Lose, and they'll separate you from the children forever. That night, Fenrissa couldn't sleep. She sat outside their tent watching stars wheel overhead, her mind racing through scenarios. Finnegan would invoke the abandoned cub law. He'd claim territorial right. He'd argue she lacked resources to properly raise royal heirs. Small bodies pressed against her sides. The children had woken, sensing her distress. They'd shifted to human form and now curled around her like a living blanket. Mama scared? Frost asked, small hands clutching her shirt. A little, Fenrissa admitted. The Alpha King wants to take you away from me. No, Storm said with absolute certainty. We choose you. That's the rule. The old king doesn't know the rules changed, Shadow added, unusually talkative. We'll show him. Ash, always the eldest and wisest, pressed a hand over Fenrissa's heart. You're not alone anymore, Mama. None of us are. Tears slipped down Fenrissa's cheeks. She gathered them close, breathing in their scent, pine and snow and something indefinably hers. A sound drew her attention. Wolves moving through the camp, heading for the central fire. Then another group, then another, all stopping to stare at her tent. Come, Dagmar urged. They're gathering. They want to see. Fenrissa stood, children clinging to her. She walked to where wolves from every territory had assembled. Hundreds of eyes tracked her movement. The whispers rose like wind through leaves. Is it true? Mother Wolf Bond? I thought it was extinct. Look at the threads! By the gods, you can see them! 5 pure frostborn. The prophecy... Then the children shifted. 5 tiny wolves standing before the crowd, and as if guided by instinct older than thought, they lifted their muzzles and howled. The sound was perfect. 5 voices woven into harmony so pure it made the stars seem to pulse in rhythm. This wasn't random pup noise. This was the Mother Harmony, a song that hadn't been heard in 200 years. An elder wolf with silver fur dropped to his knees. By the old gods, he whispered. The Mother walks among us again. Kestra gripped Fenrissa's hand, her voice thick with emotion. They can't deny this. They can't deny you. But across the amphitheater, in the royal section, Finnegan stood watching with Seraphine at his side. His face was unreadable, but Fenrissa saw his hand clench into a fist. The hearing would begin at dawn, and she had no idea if ancient prophecy would be enough to stand against an Alpha King's claim. The amphitheater filled before dawn, every stone seat occupied by wolves who'd traveled from across the territories. Fenrissa stood in the center of the arena floor, the children arranged at her feet in wolf form, while 12 territory alphas sat in judgment on the highest tier. Finnegan stood opposite her, Seraphine beside him, both dressed in ceremonial robes that caught the rising sun like crowns of fire. He looked every inch the Alpha King, powerful, commanding, reasonable. Fenrissa wore the same threadbare dress she'd been exiled in, patched with whatever fabric Dagmar could spare. The appearance of power versus the reality of it. Alpha Branwen, eldest of the council, raised her hand for silence. Her white hair fell past her waist, her face carved with centuries of wisdom. We are convened to determine custody of 5 Frostborn heirs, last of the royal bloodline. Alpha King Finnegan McWrath claims territorial right. Fenrissa claims Mother Wolf bond. Let the Alpha King speak first. Finnegan stepped forward, his voice carrying easily across the amphitheater. Honored Council, I come before you not as a claimant, but as a protector. These 5 cubs, orphaned by tragedy, are the last pure Frostborn blood. They represent not just a pack, but a legacy that belongs to all territories. He paused, letting that sink in. They were found by my former Luna, Fenrissa, and I commend her compassion. But compassion alone cannot raise kings. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. These cubs require resources, training, political education, and protection that a lone wolf in a wilderness cabin simply cannot provide. I propose they be raised in the royal pack, with full honors and resources befitting their bloodline. His smile was gentle, generous. And to ease the transition, I would welcome Fenrissa back as secondary Luna so she may continue to care for them. I only want what's best for the bloodline. It was masterfully done. He'd positioned himself as reasonable, magnanimous, thinking only of the children. He'd made Fenrissa's cabin sound like a prison rather than a home. Seraphine stepped forward next, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. I must speak truth, even when it pains me. Fenrissa and I were never friends, but I bore her no ill will after the rejection. When I heard she'd taken in orphaned cubs, I was glad she'd found purpose. She paused dramatically. But now I fear she did not find them by chance. Frostborn heirs are worth kingdoms. Is it not convenient that a rejected Luna, desperate to regain status, would stumble upon the most valuable cubs in existence? She's suggesting I stole them? Fenrissa's voice cut through the amphitheater, sharp with barely controlled rage. I'm suggesting, Seraphine said delicately, that your motives may not be purely maternal. Enough, Branwen said. Fenrissa, you may speak. Fenrissa looked down at the 5 tiny wolves pressed against her legs, drawing strength from their presence. I didn't find them. They found me. During the worst blizzard in decades, dying from cold, they crawled to my door. I was dying too, starving, freezing, ready to give up. Her voice steadied. I had nothing to offer them. No food, no fire, no reason to think I could save them. But I brought them inside anyway because they were babies and they were dying, and I couldn't let that happen. She raised her eyes to the council. The mother-wolf bond didn't make me strong. The choice to save them did. And when I made that choice, the magic responded. It always does, when someone chooses love over survival. Pretty words, an alpha in the 3rd row called out. But can you prove this bond exists? I can, Fenrissa said. She closed her eyes, reaching for the silver threads. The children shifted to human form instantly, 5 toddlers now standing around her. She channeled power through the bond, gentle and deliberate, and silver light erupted from her chest like sunrise. The threads became visible to everyone, 5 luminous cords connecting her heart to theirs, pulsing with each breath. The children began to glow, their entire bodies lit from within, their eyes blazing with power that made several alphas lean back in their seats. By the old gods, Branwen whispered. I have not seen this magic in my lifetime. Then Ash stepped forward. The eldest pup looked at Finnegan, at Seraphine, at the council, and spoke with clarity that shocked the entire amphitheater. She was dying when we found her. She had nothing. She saved us anyway. The child's voice carried with unnatural strength. We chose her. She's ours. We don't want the pretty palace or the powerful pack. We want our mama. The other four moved as one, surrounding Fenrissa. Our mama, they said in perfect unison. We choose mama. The amphitheater erupted. Half the crowd surged to their feet in approval, the other half shouting objections. The council alphas argued among themselves, their voices rising. This changes everything. They're too young to make such decisions. Mother Wolf Bond supersedes territorial law, but they need proper pack structure. Branwen's howl silenced them all. The council is divided, 6-6. In matters of divided custody, ancient law permits challenge by combat. Finnegan's smile was cold and satisfied. From the royal section, a massive wolf in human form stood. Rendell, Finnegan's champion, a brutal warrior covered in scars, his reputation for viciousness known across territories. I invoke challenge right, Rendell growled, for custody of the Frostborn heirs. Fenrissa's blood turned to ice. Dagmar grabbed her arm. You can name a champion. I'll fight for you. No, Finnegan interrupted smoothly. Challenge law specifies. The one claiming primary bond must fight personally. Or forfeit. He'd planned this. Of course he'd planned this. Fenrissa looked at Rendell, easily twice her size, a killer with decades of combat experience. Then she looked at the children, their small faces fierce and trusting. I accept, she said clearly. I fight for my own. Shadow tugged her hand, his voice small but certain. You'll win, Mama. We'll help. And looking into 5 pairs of glowing eyes, Fenrissa believed him. The tent felt too small to contain her fear. Fenrissa sat cross-legged on her bedroll, the children draped across her lap and shoulders like a living blanket. Outside, the camp buzzed with anticipation of tomorrow's combat. Inside, 5 pairs of worried eyes watched her face. Mama's heart beats fast, Ember observed, small hand pressed to Fenrissa's chest. I'm scared, Fenrissa admitted. There was no point lying to children who could feel her emotions through the bond. Shadow, usually the quietest, crawled into her lap and cupped her face with tiny hands. You're the strongest, Mama. We know. We feel it. Rendell is a trained warrior, Fenrissa said softly. I've never fought anyone. I don't know how... You know, Ash interrupted with the certainty only children possess. You just don't remember yet. Storm nuzzled against her neck. Sleep, Mama. The old mothers will teach you. She didn't understand, but exhaustion pulled her under anyway. The children's combined warmth and the gentle hum of the bond lulled her into darkness deeper than sleep. The dream came like silver fire. She stood in a forest of moonlight, surrounded by wolves made of starlight and shadow. Ancient mother wolves, dozens of them, their eyes holding centuries of wisdom and fury. You think you're weak, one said, her voice resonating through Fenrissa's bones. You think the bond makes you vulnerable. It doesn't, another continued. The bond is not your weakness, child. It is your weapon. They moved around her, silver forms weaving patterns in the darkness. Every mother wolf before you has stood where you stand now, facing those who would take her children, facing death, and every one discovered the same truth. The largest stepped forward, ancient beyond measure. A mother protecting her young is the most dangerous force in existence. Not because she's skilled, not because she's trained, but because she will not stop. Cannot stop. The bond won't let her. You are not victim, they said in unison. You are avenger. You are the storm that breaks armies. You are the fury that topples kings. Remember what you are. The forest exploded in silver light. Fenrissa woke to 5 pairs of glowing eyes inches from her face. You dreamed the old mothers, Frost whispered. We felt them too. Dawn broke cold and clear. Dagmar arrived wearing leather armor, her face grim with determination. I'm ready. I'll fight as your champion. No. Finnegan's voice carried across the arena as crowds gathered. Challenge law is clear. Mother Wolf Bond claims require personal combat. Proxies are not permitted. That's not, Dagmar started, but Branwen interrupted. He's correct. Ancient law specifies the bonded one must fight, or forfeit. Fenrissa's stomach dropped. She looked at Dagmar, then at Rendell stretching in the combat circle, muscles rippling with barely contained violence. Wait, Dagmar said desperately. There's an older law, Mother's right. If invoked... Is not invoked, Finnegan interrupted smoothly. Fenrissa has named you champion. The challenge proceeds. The children clung to Fenrissa as Dagmar entered the circle. Don't watch, little ones, Fenrissa murmured, trying to turn them away. We have to watch, Ash said quietly. You'll need us. The combat began. Rendell moved like liquid violence, his strikes precise and brutal. Dagmar was skilled, centuries of experience in every movement, but within minutes, blood streamed from a dozen wounds. Rendell wasn't just fighting, he was destroying, each blow calculated to cause maximum damage. Something was wrong. Rendell moved too fast, hit too hard. His eyes gleamed with unnatural light. He's enhanced, Torsten growled from beside her. Blood magic. Finnegan's cheating. Dagmar went down hard, Rendell's boot connecting with her ribs. The crack echoed across the amphitheater. The children screamed, their distress slamming through the bond like physical pain. Stop this, Fenrissa shouted, trying to rush forward. Hands held her back. Rendell lifted Dagmar by the throat, squeezing. The elderly wolf's face turned purple, her legs kicking weakly. The children began shifting involuntarily, their small bodies flickering between forms. Their distress fed into Fenrissa's chest, amplifying her own horror, building like pressure behind a dam. Dagmar's eyes met hers across the arena, apologizing, failing. Something in Fenrissa's chest shattered. Enough! The word came out as a roar that shook the stone amphitheater. She ripped free from the restraining hands, silver light exploding from her skin in waves. I invoke Mother's right, she declared, her voice resonating with power that made even Branwen lean forward in shock. I fight for my own. The council erupted in chaos. Mother's right hasn't been invoked in 3 centuries. It supersedes all other combat law. She has the right. Rendell dropped Dagmar, his grin vicious. Come then, little Luna. Let me finish what your mate started. Fenrissa stepped into the circle and the world narrowed to singular purpose. The children's voices rose behind her, 5 tiny wolves howling in perfect harmony. The sound wasn't comfort, it was amplification. Power pouring through the bond in torrents that made her skin burn with silver fire. Her wolf rose, and it was vast, massive, ancient. She shifted, and gasped echoed across the amphitheater. Her wolf form towered over Rendell's, silver fur blazing with light, eyes reflecting not fear, but absolute primal fury. The mother wolf had awakened, and she was done being prey. Fenrissa's wolf form made the crowd gasp in collective awe. She stood nearly twice the size of a normal alpha, her silver fur rippling with light that seemed alive, eyes blazing with power that hadn't walked the earth in centuries. The mother wolf in her full, terrible glory. Rendell shifted to match her, his own wolf massive and scarred. But where Fenrissa radiated light, he moved with the cold efficiency of a killer. They circled each other, the amphitheater silent except for the children's continuous howling, 5 tiny voices feeding her strength through the bond. He struck first, faster than she expected, but her body moved on instinct, ancient knowledge flowing through her veins. She wasn't fighting with technique. She was fighting with purpose. Every dodge, every counter driven by singular need: protect her children. She caught his shoulder, teeth sinking deep. He yelped and threw her off, blood staining the arena floor. They clashed again, a blur of silver and gray, and Fenrisa felt the power building in her chest with each exchange. The bond sang with it, amplifying her strength, her speed, her fury. Then Rendell began to change. Green light erupted from his wounds and his body convulsed. He grew larger, bones cracking and reforming, muscles swelling to grotesque proportions. His eyes turned black, empty of anything resembling wolf or human. Dark veins spread across his hide like poison. "Blood magic!" Branwen's voice echoed across the arena, horrified. "Someone enhanced him with blood magic!" The transformed Rendell moved with impossible speed. His strike caught Fenrisa's flank, sending her tumbling across stone. Pain exploded through her ribs. She struggled to rise, but he was already on her, jaws closing toward her throat. "Mama!" 5 tiny bodies burst into the arena. The children had broken free from restraints, shifting to wolf form mid-run. They were so small, barely larger than rabbits, but they threw themselves at Rendell with absolute fearlessness. "No!" Fenrisa screamed. "Get back!" But they didn't run. They surrounded her instead, pressing their tiny bodies against hers, forming a circle of protection. Storm bit Rendell's paw with baby teeth. Shadow darted between his legs. Frost, smallest and bravest, stood directly in front of Fenrisa's face, snarling with everything her tiny body possessed. "Ours," the children said through the bond, their voices unified. "Our mama. You don't touch our mama." The bond exploded. Power poured through Fenrisa like a river breaking through a dam. But this wasn't just her strength anymore. It was theirs, multiplied and magnified, 5 sources of pure love and absolute trust flooding into her at once. The silver light became blinding, forcing wolves across the amphitheater to shield their eyes. Fenrisa rose, and she wasn't just wolf anymore. She was something between forms, something ancient and terrible and beautiful, a manifestation of pure protective fury. The mother wolf made flesh, burning with light that turned the arena bright as noon. Rendell lunged at the children. He never reached them. Fenrisa moved faster than sight, placing herself between him and her pups. When their bodies collided, it wasn't combat. It was obliteration. Her power didn't just match his blood-enhanced strength. It consumed it, burning through the dark magic like sunlight through shadow. Rendell's monstrous form began to crack, green light leaking from fractures in his hide. He howled in agony as the blood magic unraveled, unable to withstand the mother wolf's fury. "What are you?" he gasped, his voice distorted. "What? I am the one you should have left alone," Fenrisa said, and her voice resonated with power that made the ancient stones tremble. "I am the mother you threatened, and there is nothing in this world more dangerous than that." She didn't kill him. She didn't need to. Her power simply overwhelmed his, burning away the corruption until Rendell collapsed in his normal form, unconscious and broken but alive. The green light dying on his body traced back like a visible thread across the arena, through the crowd, to where Finnegan stood frozen in the royal section. The amphitheater erupted in chaos. The blood magic came from the Alpha King. He cheated. He corrupted the challenge. Forbidden magic in sacred combat. Branwen's howl silenced them all. The ancient Alpha rose, her face carved from fury. "Finnegan McGrath, step forward." Finnegan's face had gone pale, but he descended to the arena floor with his head high. Seraphine followed, her hand trembling on his arm. "You used blood magic," Branwen said, each word sharp as a blade. You corrupted sacred combat. You attempted to murder through proxy. On what authority? With what right? I did what was necessary, Finnegan said, his voice tight. Those children are too valuable to be left with their chosen mother? Branwen interrupted. With the wolf they bonded to? With the mother wolf who just demonstrated power you could never hope to match? She stepped closer, and even an alpha king leaned back from her wrath. You saw her awaken magic you've spent your reign trying to suppress, and rather than honor it, you tried to destroy it. Again. The last word fell like a stone. Fenrissa understood suddenly. Finnegan had always known what she was, had always feared it. That's why he'd rejected her. Not because she was weak, but because her strength terrified him. The Council's judgment is unanimous, Branwen declared. Finnegan McGrath, you are stripped of title. Your pack is dissolved, and you are hereby banished from all territories for the use of forbidden magic in sacred combat. Finnegan's face contorted with rage, but 6 alphas moved forward to restrain him. As they dragged him away, his eyes met Fenrissa's across the arena. You were nothing, he hissed. Nothing without me. No, Fenrissa said quietly, the children pressed against her legs. I was always something. You just refused to see it. The council reconvened at sunset. The amphitheater bathed in gold and shadow. Fenrissa stood in the center with the children clustered around her legs, still glowing faintly with residual power. Every wolf in attendance watched in silence as Branwen pronounced judgment. Seraphine of the Silver Moon, step forward. The new Luna, former Luna now, descended with visible reluctance. Her composure had cracked during Finnegan's arrest, mascara streaking her perfect face. Did you know of the blood magic enhancement? Branwen asked. Seraphine's silence was answer enough. Finally, she whispered, He said it was necessary, that she was dangerous, that she'd stolen something that didn't belong to her. Her eyes lifted to Fenrissa, filled with something that might have been regret. I was jealous of what you had, of what you became after he threw you away. You were supposed to break, and instead you... Her voice caught. Instead you became everything I pretended to be. You're implicated in the use of forbidden magic, Branwen said. You will be stripped of Luna status and barred from holding pack rank for 10 years. Use this time to learn what power actually means. Seraphine nodded, tears falling freely now. As guards escorted her away, she looked back once. I'm sorry, she mouthed to Fenrissa. Fenrissa didn't respond. Some apologies came too late to matter. Now, Branwen turned to address the full council, her voice ringing with authority. We come to the matter of custody. The mother-wolf bond is not merely valid. It is sacred. It supersedes all territorial claims, all political maneuvering, all alpha authority. She looked at each council member in turn. Do any contest this? Silence. Not a single voice rose in opposition. Then let it be recorded. Fenrissa of No Pack is granted full custody of the 5 Frostborn heirs. They are bound to her as chosen mother, and this bond shall not be broken by any authority in any territory. The amphitheater erupted in cheers and howls. The children shifted to human form and threw their arms around Fenrissa's legs, their joy palpable through the bond. Furthermore, Branwen continued, we grant Fenrissa territory of her own. The Northern Valley, unclaimed for a century, shall be hers to settle and govern as she sees fit. She may establish her own pack under her own laws. Mama gets a kingdom? Ember asked, wonder in her voice. Mama gets a home, Fenrissa corrected, tears streaming down her face. We get a real home. As the council dispersed, wolves began approaching her. Not alphas seeking alliance, but Lunas. Dozens of them, some rejected like her, others marginalized, dismissed, told they weren't enough. Kestra reached her first, dropping to her knees. "Can you teach us? Teach us what you learned? I don't have children yet, but I feel it inside me, this potential, and I—" "Yes," Fenrissa said simply, helping her stand. "I'll teach anyone who wants to learn. The mother-wolf bond isn't just mine. It's all of ours." A revolution had begun, quiet but unstoppable. Guards brought Finnegan forward one final time, chains around his wrists. His face was haggard, his pride shattered. "Fenrissa," he said hoarsely, "I didn't know what you were. If I had known you could awaken this power, I would have—" "You would have used me," Fenrissa interrupted quietly, "just like you're trying to use words now to manipulate your way back to relevance." She stepped closer, and he actually flinched. "You knew who I was, Finnegan. A Luna who loved you. A mate who would have stood beside you through anything. You chose not to see value in that because it wasn't the kind of power you understood. That was your failure, not mine." "Please," he whispered. "I made a mistake. You made a choice," she corrected. "And now you live with it, just like I lived with yours." She turned her back on him, gathering the children close. "I am not yours to reclaim. I never will be again." As they dragged him away, Ember tugged her hand. "Mama, you're crying." "Sometimes," Fenrissa said, wiping her eyes. "You cry because you're sad. And sometimes you cry because a weight you've carried for so long finally lifts." The binding ceremony took place as stars emerged. Ancient ritual, witnessed by every territory, performed by Branwen herself. Fenrissa knelt in the center of a silver circle while the children surrounded her, their small hands pressed to her heart. "Mother Wolf," Branwen intoned, "do you accept these 5 as your own, bound soul to soul, until death and beyond?" "I do," Fenrissa said, her voice steady. "I choose them. I will always choose them." "And you, children of frost and prophecy, do you choose this mother, knowing the bond can never be broken?" 5 voices rang out in perfect unity. "We choose Mama Fenrissa, forever." Silver light exploded skyward, visible for miles. Threads that had been temporary became permanent, weaving between 6 souls in patterns that would last beyond death. Fenrissa gasped as she felt them settle into place, unbreakable, eternal, hers. Branwen's voice carried across the amphitheater. "The Mother Wolf walks among us again. Let all territories honor her. Let all wolves remember. True power is not domination. It is love fierce enough to reshape the world." Later, as they traveled to their new territory, the children shifted between forms playfully, running ahead and doubling back, finally free from fear. The northern valley spread before them, green and lush, rivers cutting through meadows, mountains standing guardian on all sides. "Home," Frost whispered, the word sacred. Fenrissa knelt in the grass, the children piling onto her in their favorite formation. "We build something new here," she told them, "a place where the thrown away become treasured, where power means protection, not domination, where every wolf knows their worth." "And we'll have cookies?" Storm asked seriously. Fenrissa laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Yes, little one, we'll definitely have cookies." As the sun set on their first day in the northern valley, Fenrissa looked at the children sleeping peacefully around her and finally understood what the prophecy meant. She hadn't just saved 5 who would rule. She'd learned to rule herself, her fear, her past, her power, and that was the greatest magic of all. 3 years later, the northern valley had transformed from wilderness into sanctuary. Fenrissa walked through the settlement at dawn, watching smoke rise from 24 cabins where rejected Lunas and orphaned cubs had found refuge. Gardens flourished where there had been only wild grass. Children's laughter echoed across the training grounds. The Thrown Away had become a community. Her 5 were no longer tiny pups. At what appeared to be 5 or 6 years old now, they moved with the grace of young wolves coming into their power. Ash led a group of younger cubs through shifting exercises. Ember worked with Dagmar on combat forms. Frost helped in the healing house, her gentle touch already showing gifts. Storm and Shadow raced each other across the meadow, their speed leaving trails of disturbed air. "They're magnificent," a voice said behind her. Fenrissa turned to find Seraphine standing at the valley's entrance, older and humbler than the proud Luna who'd testified against her. 3 years of exile had carved away the arrogance, leaving something more genuine beneath. "You're not supposed to be here," Fenrissa said carefully. "Your banishment." "Ends today," Seraphine interrupted. "I came to ask permission before entering your territory, and to apologize, properly this time." She stepped closer, her eyes honest. "I was raised to see Lunas as ornaments, beautiful, decorative, valuable only for what we could produce. You taught me we're foundations, that our strength holds up everything else." Fenrissa studied her former rival. "What will you do now?" "Learn," Seraphine said simply. "If you'll have me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just the chance to become someone worth forgiving." Before Fenrissa could answer, bells rang across the valley. Council representatives were arriving for the quarterly assembly. Fenrissa had become an official council voice, advocating for reforms that had already changed territorial law. Rejected Lunas now had legal protections. Mother wolf bonds were recognized as sacred. Pups could choose their families. The revolution she'd started was becoming permanent. At the assembly, her 5 took center stage for their first public demonstration. They shifted in perfect synchronization, 5 young wolves moving as one organism. Their coordination was breathtaking. What one started, another finished, their movements flowing like water or wind. When they channeled power through their bond with Fenrissa, the entire valley lit up with silver light that made even the eldest alphas whisper in awe. "The Frostborn will reshape the territories," one elder murmured. "Not through conquest, but through unity. The prophecy is fulfilling itself. 5 who rule," Fenrissa thought, "not through dominance, but through the bond that makes power clear." She finally understood. Her children wouldn't rule as tyrants or conquerors. They'd rule as proof that strength came from connection, not isolation. After the assembly, a young Luna approached hesitantly. Her Luna mark was fresh, her eyes hollow with the particular pain of recent rejection. "Mother Wolf," she whispered. "They said I was defective, broken, that I'd never awaken any power worth having. But I feel something inside me, and I hoped." Fenrissa took the girl's trembling hands. "What's your name?" "Lyra." "Lyra, you are not weak." "You were never weak. You were just told the wrong story about what strength looks like." She guided the girl to sit beside her, the children gathering close with the instinctive compassion of those who understood suffering. Strength isn't domination. It's not about being the biggest or loudest or most feared. Real strength is choosing compassion when the world demands cruelty. It's saving others when you can barely save yourself. It's opening your door to dying pups when you have nothing left to give. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "How did you do it? How did you survive?" "I didn't survive alone," Fenrissa said, pulling the children close. "I found purpose. I found family. I found that the magic everyone said was extinct was just waiting for someone brave enough to need it." That evening, as sunset painted the valley gold and crimson, the children curled around Fenrissa in their favorite formation, a pile of bodies and trust and absolute belonging. "Tell us again, Mama," Frost requested, her voice sleepy. "Tell us how you found us." Fenrissa smiled, stroking silver hair. "Once there was a Luna everyone said was nothing. She believed them because when you're told something enough times, it becomes your truth. But then came a blizzard, and 5 tiny wolves who refused to let her believe lies anymore." "We chose you," Ash murmured. "You chose me," Fenrissa agreed. "And in choosing me, you taught me to choose myself." She looked across her valley, at the families she'd saved, the Lunas she'd empowered, the children who'd found sanctuary. From a dying woman in a frozen cabin to the mother wolf who'd reshaped territorial law from nothing to everything. "We built something beautiful here," she whispered to her sleeping children, "where the broken become whole, where the discarded become treasured, where everyone finally learns their worth." The prophecy hadn't been about conquest. It had been about this. About proving that those society threw away often held its greatest magic. And as stars emerged above the northern valley, Fenrissa knew the story was far from over. It was just beginning. So that's the story of how a rejected Luna became the mother wolf who changed everything. Now I need to know, what part hit you the hardest? The moment she opened that door? The children defending her in the arena? Finnegan's pathetic begging at the end? Drop your favorite moment in the comments right now. And if this story moved you at all, you better hit that subscribe button because I have more stories like this that will absolutely wreck you emotionally. Don't just watch and leave. Subscribe, comment, and let me know what story you want next. Seriously, do it now.